Hello and welcome to a video on my top 5 players to watch over the Supercoach 2023 preseason. It's George from Fantasy Take TV. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing great because I think this week most of the teams go back to training, which means big footy training reports. So I'm very excited for that. Hopefully a few on the AFL website and those obscure footy forums. You know, things like our exclusive Richmond and Essendon forum and all that sort of stuff. So I love digging up those sort of things. Some good training watches out there, so hopefully get some great information. But yeah, over the next few weeks, yeah, well, I think with defense, the outlook is we're waiting for information on a lot of rookies and mid prices and trying to figure out what the sort of balance is, like how many rookies can we have on field and all that. So yeah, the defense is very much up in the air at the moment in terms of what sort of structure you can run. But I guess you can say that for most lines. But I think the defense more so because there's probably less mid prices in this line that are probably realistic chances of being picked, or in my team anyway. So yeah, we'll get straight into it. So my top 5 players to watch. Number 5 is, we'll dig him up, is Josh Goater. Can't spell goat. Yeah, 192k defender mid, but yeah, we'll probably need him in defense. So from what I've been reading about Goda, very positive things. Played a halfback role and improved in the second half of the VFL last year, and then played the one game, scored the 70 odd, and unfortunately that means his price is a lot now, 190k. So he's a second year player, needed to improve on his endurance. So seems like he's having a good preseason. Could play on a wing or halfback. I think with a lot of the North play, or a lot of rookies in general, are going to be substitute risks. And I think Goda's chance of being a sub risk is probably a bit lesser. Just second year in the system, a few other, first year players that might be better candidates for that. You never know, but feels like he's really coming along really well, and yeah, could play on a wing potentially. So obviously you probably want him at halfback, but even on a wing, he can probably do a 65 average. So that's the hope. But yeah, just reading a lot of good things. I think a lot of the big 40 North supporters seem to be putting money on him for the rising star. I can't tell if that's a joke or not, but yeah, they're very excited about him. And yeah, he looked really good in his, I think it was round 23 that he played in the back line. So he's one of the few players I'm willing to pay up for in terms of rookies. I think there's a lot of, especially the draftees, I don't really want to pay for. Maybe Ashcroft, yes. Everyone else, not too sure on. I think I'll need a lot of convincing, but you never know. It's in preseason, there's plenty of time to improve, so we'll see how they go. So that's number 5, Josh Goater. So yeah, I definitely think he'll play and he'll be good, but just depends on whether if we can run base rookies or not that are suitable to have on the field. So the next player I have is, probably don't need to search it, is Nick 35 Dacos. So Dacos has been in and out my team for the preseason. I probably shouldn't touch the team really until we get more information. But what's interesting is I did read on the Herald Sun website that he's had a bit of Achilles soreness. I don't know how severe that is. Never a great sign, but it's only a bit of soreness at this early stage. Achilles injuries can be overloading injuries. So yeah, maybe that he's run too much or something. So not too sure what's going on there, but that'll be one to monitor. But could see a slight role change. His CBAs were really, really, really low. Excuse me. In 2022, early in the year he got a few, and then after that they just settled him in defense for pretty much the rest of the year. Did occasionally rotate to half forward, but mostly down back, and yeah, not many CBAs. But apparently put on a bit of weight. They want to use him in the middle. I think it was 36 touches. Not sure anyone's done that in NAB League before in the junior days. So I'm a pretty big fan of Dacos. I just think that he can do 100. And you got to remember the 91 average that he did last year. He played through foot soreness for quite a few weeks, probably 1 or 2 months, something like that. So maybe he could have averaged 95 odd last year. So maybe yeah, he's a bit discounted, but again maybe carrying a slight niggle at the moment potentially, so just keep an eye on that. How will he score in the midfield? I don't have much memory. I think he played a preseason game where he did get a few CBAs and he played really, really well. Looked really clean in there. Was able to spread from the contest. So halfback, maybe he swaps with Pendlebury. Can he be a top 6? I think he can go close. I just think the talent is so good, but being a second year player, like he did probably get a bit of extra development. Did train with Collingwood before actually being drafted by them. So maybe he's a bit ahead, and he's a bit older than most draftees. So in his year, so I do like the Dacos pick. In terms of like your discounted premiums, say your sub, anyone that's not 600k, I'm a little bit hesitant to go too many of these plays. Maybe one, if not two, but I think one at the max, just because there's a lot of uncertainty, and you've got 5 guys at 600k that are probably going to be at the top end again, but you never know. So yeah, Dacos is a watch. See what he does in the midfield. How good can he be? I think that, personally, I'd probably use him more down back because I think they have enough midfielders, although a lot of them are senior bodies, probably need rests through the year. But they have Adams, and now they have Tom Mitchell. Dougherty can roll through there. Pendlebury can roll through there. Crisp is going to get a lot of time in there. There's a lot of names that can go through there, but I think we'll see his improvement. There was a video of him doing the 2K time trial, and he didn't even break a sweat. And everyone else was just like getting on their knees afterwards. So, excited to watch Dacos. He's very high on the watch list. He's not in my team currently. I want to see how he goes in the midfield and how good he looks. You can generally see if they've improved from year to year. So see how he goes, but hopefully all fully fit. But yeah, I'd kind of do prefer him in the halfback role. I think he can push 100 next year. But we'll see. Number 3 on my list is a guy I currently have in my team, is Ed Richards. So I did speak briefly about Richards in the last team review that I did, and I'm a fan of him. I think sounds like Caleb Daniel was training up the ground. Now, who takes Caleb Daniel's spot? I think they've got a few draftees that could probably plot in there, but they want to do. But Ed Richards, yeah, he did about 107 in I think a 6 or 7 game stretch towards the back end of the year. Did have the poor final. I think he only scored 40. But when I watch the Bulldogs in, when they have their really tough games, especially in finals, they revert to passing to Caleb Daniel. They just rely on him so much, and that's what they did in the final. They funneled it through Dale a bit as well. And Ed Richards did not get the rebounding responsibility that he did in the previous 6 or 7 weeks to that final when they lost to Fremantle. And in the second half, they barely touched the ball anyway. So, bit of a tough game, but that can happen. I think he didn't get many kick-ins, but if Daniel does move up the ground, then he should get. You would think he gets more kick-ins because he did get a few when Daniel was out of the team, but when Daniel was in the team, kick-ins pretty much dried up. But also Adam Treloar, does he still go back there? So I think he'll gain a lot of confidence, and he did come off a really severe broken ankle. Probably, I think he had a full preseason, but he did miss the entire season before, so it did take a while to get his confidence. Training reports seem to be pretty positive so far for him. He's still in that halfback role, so for 460k, a little bit of a risk, a little bit speculative. But yeah, already done 84, and hopefully more kick-ins, which will help him. I don't know, 2 extra kick-ins a game could push him to 90. So, and yeah, with Daniel potentially not playing down back, but again, Daniel could always come back to defense at any point and hurt his scoring. I just think there's a decent amount of upside in this pick, and for me, if I'm taking a risk, I think I look at the forward line. I like Dunkley, Rosie, Taranto. I don't see any of them moving. Maybe Rosie if I need to free up space. And in the midfield, kind of set on probably at least 3 midfielders, Oliver, Steele, and Bont, and then the rest's a little bit up in the air. Don't really want to take risks in the mid 500 players, but understand that a lot of them are quite popular at the moment. But yeah, one to monitor. But in defense, it's trying to find the balance here of these 600k players. Not too sure which value picks. I've got Dacos and Richards here. They're probably the 2 that I'm considering. Then the mid prices we'll get to Bose shortly, but just not too sure. Elliot Yeo as well. So need a lot of more information. So yeah, having probably the hardest time. The line I'm having the hardest time filling out is the defense. So that's where kind of Ed Richards comes in. But I'm not picking Ed Richards for the sake of, well, not at the moment in the team for the sake of just picking him, but because it's an excuse to fill out the defense. But I actually do like him as a pick. So we'll see how he goes over the preseason. There's a lot of I've done a bit of a write-up for Ed Richards in a mid-price article I've done, and yeah, I did add him in my team after writing that up, so I do like him. And I think he's a really good player as well. Just good all-round defender, can intercept, can spoil. Goes back with the flight, pretty courageous. Although it's probably not the smartest idea in this day and age, but do like him. I always found that interesting. I know Geelong have a rule where they don't go back with the flight of the ball. Just seems too dangerous, but I don't know. I stopped playing footy when I was I think 11 years old. So the next player I like is Sam Dougherty. So you're looking at these 600k defenders. Say the top 5. Not seeing any Sinclair, just a few question marks. Sicily probably that little bit more expensive when you got alternatives below him. Seeing a lot of Tom Stewart, seeing a lot of Dawson, and then Dougherty's just there at the same price. And I think people just prefer Dawson and Stewart, which makes sense. But again, with Sam Dougherty, has not had a full preseason for a very, very long time. He'll get that this year, and it sounds like he'll potentially start the year in the midfield because Carlton were down midfielders last year. They threw Dougherty in the midfield, played really well, had a game where he had, I think, 10 tackles. But yeah, it was the last 2 games that he played midfield, and yeah, he played really well there, really well. And we know Carlton, they play a pretty fantasy-friendly style. They like to chip it around a lot. And yeah, Dougherty just loves, one of the players that loves running to space the most. So you got a good inside and outside game from what I've seen. So I do not mind Dougherty. What happens when Walsh comes back in? Is he actually going to play midfield early? So we'll see how we go. But also with Carlton, they've got 2 other players that are coming off major surgery. I think George Hewitt's had back surgery, and Matt Kennedy's got a foot issue from memory. So yeah, maybe they managed the mid minutes of those guys for a bit. Setterfield came in, they traded him to Essendon. Eddie Dow's there. They didn't really show much interest in playing Dow. So I think they'll use Dougherty early in the midfield, and maybe he can start really hot, and I guess hope for the best. And maybe with Walsh comes back in a month, what does that mean for Dougherty? Well, we should probably go back in defence, or maybe split his time defence and midfield. But yeah, it's going to be tough to, they've got their 5 mainstays in the midfield at Carlton, so it'll be tough to break into when all fully fit. Just hopefully, they don't settle down back, because I know maybe Zach Williams has a better season. Yeah, he's coming off injury. They got Sard, who had a great season last year. So if for whatever reason that settles, and maybe hopefully they don't move him around anywhere else, like a wing or something. Oh, I'm not too sure. I'm just sort of making that up just because they got Sard and Williams back there. But yeah, maybe they just play Dougherty wing on midfield. I don't know. But they did bring in Akers, so might be talking out my arse here. I'm not too sure. But yeah, hopefully he stays in the midfield. If not, goes down back. So hopefully we hear some PR out of Carlton about that. And I'd like to see it, because if he really tears it up in the preseason games, an inside midfielder, as an inside mid, even though he's 600k, I am interested. I think I'll start Dawson, and then the other one, if I had to start, I think Sicily's probably just a bit too much, and then I'll probably go Dougherty. I'm not the biggest fan of Stewart because of his durability record, but like a lot of his injuries have been in the preseason, but I am open to picking him, so we'll see how we go. Number 1 on my list is one Jack Bose. Bose is a little confusing because I haven't really heard anything out of Geelong, but you hear all the things in the, after the grand final, Danger kind of singled him out, said, told the recruiters mid-year, Bose playing VFL, get him in. And you got to remember with Jack Bose, or there's also like Jack Bose he's kind of keen for a fresh start. I wrote a good article on him. Seems to be reasonably confident in himself. And I think you got to remember that Bose has not had a clean run at it for quite a while. In 2021, I believe, did a hamstring, came back. Just role wasn't the same as it was earlier in the year when he was playing that halfback role, Seagull role, so to speak. Does a hamstring, kind of form waivers, roll waivers a bit. 2022 preseason comes up. He's training in the midfield, but he does his shoulder. That's a 4-month injury. And we see players that do their shoulder. We've seen, I reckon, Nat Fyfe. Nat Fyfe did his shoulder and he just wasn't the same for the rest of the year. And we saw Dunkley do his shoulder a few years ago wasn't the same when he came back. He had the 12 weeks off or something, but yeah, did not hit the form he was capable of. So yeah, I assume he had a shoulder reconstruction. So did come back through halfway through the year in the VFL. Didn't really set the world on fire, but when you're coming off a shoulder reco, you're not going to be at your best. So what can he actually do? I'd like to see it because he can score. He's got a good work rate. Don't know if he's any good in the midfield or not. But that's where he wants to play. I think. Could he play on a wing as well? I'm not too sure. I haven't heard anything about him playing in defense. Only midfield. So that's one I'm pretty keen to watch. 277k. I think at halfback he was almost doing 110 over the first 5 weeks. I think it slowly evened out to about 100 odd over time. Then the injury in 2021. But yeah, that was in a different role. But what can he do in the midfield? No Selwood. I don't know. Maybe he can do 85 plus, which I think is acceptable for someone at, I don't know what he's priced at, what the number is, but 277k. I think if you average 85, you should be able to push, I don't know, 130, 140k, something like that. So, and you just be an on-field option, potentially a sub risk as well. I'm not too sure. I'm just trying to figure out how good he is. So he's going to be the most, not the most important one, but one of the most important players to watch over the preseason because he's shown some scoring power in the past, different role. So yeah, that's the video. That's my top 5. So we'll do midfield and forward, and then I don't know about rucks. Not a whole lot to talk about. Maybe leave that one and think about that on a podcast or something like that. Those are my top 5. Let me know your top 5, and yeah, should be good. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.